I feel lucky today because Bill McCurley is here in the studio. Bill, thanks so much for coming in. It's really a delight to have you here. And we're going to learn all kinds of things about you personally and about the car business.
Well, thank you, Christine. I'm happy to be here.
Good. Hey, so, you know, you have taken on a different role, and I want to talk about the different role that you've taken on, but let's go way back in history. And how is it that you even got involved in the car business in the first place?
Well, the history for me goes back a long way. My dad started in the car business in the 50s. He worked for Standard Oil, setting up full-service gas stations at the time, and one of his dealers was a small Chevrolet dealer in central North Dakota. And as the family story goes, he borrowed $25,000 from my granddad and made a deal with the guy and went into the Chevrolet business. And Carrington, North Dakota, a little town of 3,000 people in 1954. So I was kind of born into it. I started selling cars when I was in high school after sweeping the floors in
Wow.
grade school, and
Yeah.
so that was my entry. And when I got serious about it, I was going to college. My plan was to go to get a law degree. That didn't work out so well. He died as a young man at 47. So I was 20 and had 4 younger sisters, the youngest being 10. So that was in 1970. So I spent that was the end of my college career and the beginning of my official automotive career.
So you didn't finish school.
I did not.
And you decided,
College
and instead
dropout.
you took over the business.
That's right.
Yeah. Well, what I find absolutely fascinating, so that's North Dakota.
That's right.
How did you end up here in Tri-Cities, Washington?
Well, it was quite a journey. Like a lot of people say I'm over analytical, and I guess that goes back from to the very beginning. But I noticed not long afterwards, as I was trying to figure out how we were going to grow this business, that the population of Barnes County, North Dakota, peaked in 1932, and this was 1970. I'd lived there about a year, and was disappointed to hear that. And for those listeners that remember the 70s, there was a couple of oil crises. Inflation was running 10% a year, so I did the math and said, 10% a year and a declining population, so expenses are going up, sales are going down, and population is going down. There's no future. So late 70s, I started looking for another opportunity. And although I knocked on a lot of doors and went a lot of places, eventually, with a recommendation from an associate in Seattle, told me about Pasco, Kennewick, and Richland, and I had a few days. I remember distinctly. It was a Thursday, and I had my next appointment in Seattle on a Tuesday. So I stayed, drove around a little bit, drove to Portland, and got a map out in the rain in Portland. While I was putting gas in my car, and saw, wow, there's Kennewick and Pasco. That's not that far away. And there was a dark night in December in 1980, and I drove it up from the drive into South Kennewick, and called Tony Osborne the next Monday morning and asked to see him. So that was the beginning.
That was the beginning. If anyone is there in our audience that wants to ask a question, make a comment, go ahead, give us a call. That number is 547-8726. It's really funny, I guess, that you bring up the idea that you're analytical. When I asked a few people about you, Bill, they said, oh my, you're a very slow golfer because every stroke is very analytical. Yeah. Would you agree with that?
Well, I would. I wish golf is about feel and talent, and I try to make up for it with the skills that I do have, since I don't have the talent, but it doesn't work out that well for me.
That's great. Okay, so wow, you've a very, very long history in auto sales. What has changed? What really strikes you most? What jumps out to you the most about the changes?
A couple of things, Christine. The business is becoming a big business, really. There's a tremendous amount of consolidation. When I started as a very young man in my 20s, I like to joke that there was a car dealership every time two roads crossed. And I think a lot of people could relate to that if they think about even the small towns that they grew up in, or even if you didn't grow up in a small town, you were around a small town, and there might be a grain elevator and a bar and a little grocery store, but odds are there was a car repair or a car dealership. And there was literally thousands, if I remember right, somewhere around 30,000 at the top. Now, for example, there's less than 300 car dealerships in the state of Washington. So a lot of consolidation. Yeah. The other thing is it's becoming, I mentioned big business, the big public companies are getting into the car business. And for example, Warren Buffett just bought one of the largest private chains and renamed it Berkshire Hathaway Automotive. Bill Gates is, if not, he's a major stockholder of AutoNation. I don't know if he's the largest, but he's certainly a major stakeholder in that large company. And there's a lot of them around the state of Washington, and so that consolidation, that's probably the biggest changes.
The biggest consolidation for dealerships. Tell me about the differences in cars that really strike you from then and now.
Well, you know, I'm sure there's a lot of listeners, a lot of us have had our favorite cars. You know, you go back and think about, well, I remember the first car I had, and it was, you know, people will talk about their 57 Chevy or whatever it happens to be. And other than being a collector, if you go back and drive one of those cars and you remember them being great, and you remember the AM radio and how you felt, it's a kind of an emotional experience. But if you really go back and drive one today, as I've done, you think, wow, these are not very good cars.
Yeah, they're tough to drive.
Yeah, they don't steer very well, they don't handle very well, relative today, they don't do anything very well. You might like the looks of them, but they're not very good relative to today in terms of, and particularly in terms of safety. You know, there was a time where car accidents were one of the major health issues, if you will, in our country. And now, you know, look at all the accidents. You see mangled cars and people walk away. The combination of safety factors in cars is amazing. The other is the emissions are amazing, especially relative to the performance of cars. You know, there was a time not that many years ago where somebody thought that 15 or 20 miles per gallon was pretty good fuel mileage. And now, you know, Corvettes are in the, you know, performance cars are in the high 20s and low 30s with all of the latest technology. And so doubling, tripling, quadrupling of economy, still with good performance, lightweight engines, high safety, and good performance. There really isn't a such thing as a bad car today. You know, there might have been in the past, but all makes and models are good today. Some are just relatively better.
Technology has really, really played a part in this. You're right. But here's my thought, Bill. Some of the cars today they're too technical. And so you get into them and it's like, oh my gosh, I have got to completely relearn all kinds of information, and there's too much computerized stuff, and there's too many buttons, and
where's the landing gear
switch? Right.
I mean, I had a friend who traded her brand new car in because it was just too much, and she toned down. You know, she looked for things that didn't have as many bells and whistles. So
there's some of that, yes.
Yeah.
Well, there's no question that automobiles are becoming more and more computerized, and that trend I think will continue. But think about our computers and phones, not just as they relate to cars, but the computers and phones of today relative to, let's say, when Microsoft and Apple were brand new. I mean, there was a time where we thought that if you were loading a Microsoft program and Windows crashed, that was an everyday experience,
yes.
right? Or it was at least common. But right now they're pretty stable. They work pretty well. And I guess my point is that as technology, even though the cars are more hooked together and there's more computerization, I think that the manufacturers certainly kind of get the idea that the complexity needs to be behind the scenes, and the cars need to be simpler. As an example, the radios used to have all kinds of little buttons on them.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
they were very complex, and now manufacturers have decided that people really like knobs. You like a button that turn it on and off, and you grab the button and you turn it right and left to make it louder. So the little buttons have kind of gone away. The same thing with clocks. You'll see more clocks with faces on them than you see digital in cars right now, and there'll be duplication. But overall, when you buy a new car, if you buy it and you have a good salesman that's well trained, which certainly is our objective, that salesman should set up all of the bells and buttons
Yes.
in your car for you, and just teach you about the things you're interested in, and the rest of it should operate in the background.
Yeah, that's an interesting philosophy. Hey, we'll take a break here. I've got so many more questions. I really want to find out where the whole idea of integrity came from as a word and as a theme for your company. And I want to know how the car business reflects the Tri-Cities economy, if it does. So we're talking to Bill McCurley. Stay with us. Yeah, great. Awesome.
We'll answer your question and give information, but not get too wordy. So if you think it's
no, it's
too
good.
wordy,
It's good.
just let me know.
So obviously you're a person who has really stayed abreast of technology. You don't make these books and things like that without having all that exposure.
I want to keep up.
Yeah.
I mean, I've got all kinds of people that are way better than I am, and as they should be. And so I'm not trying to be the technology expert, but I am trying to keep up. And
Yeah.
those people that quit that, all of a sudden they kind of give up.
They're disconnected, though.
Yeah.
It's Some people want to be disconnected. They like that. So.
Well, I think people, as long as they understand it and say, okay, well, this can benefit me, then they tend to embrace it.
Yeah.
But if there's, there has to be a motivation there. Okay, what can this do to help me? And if I understand it, then.
I've had a lot of employees kind of unhook and give up, and I watch them, and they say, not by their words, but by their actions. I got 5 years left or 10 years left, and so therefore, I can start coasting. It doesn't take long, and it's not good.
But I think originally, like maybe 10 years ago or so, or 15 years ago, a lot of people thought that older people were going to be left behind. And I don't see that as the case at all. I see a lot of older people who are very, very engaged because they don't want to be left.
Yeah. I joke that, you talk about a golf game, I joke that everybody wants to shoot their age. I joke that I have to stay healthy because I have it plotted that as my handicap goes up, I have to stay healthy because the lines cross at 120.
Yeah.
That's funny.
If I could get a little healthier and practice more, I might be able to get it down to 110.
Wow.
Well, if this fires like it's supposed to, I have a very appropriate bump coming out.
Okay, good.
Fuel from Metallica. I remember buying cars. My dad bought some old Fiats when I was growing up, and they didn't even come with a seatbelt in the back.
Oh yeah, oh, of
He had
course
to go
not.
buy
Yeah.
seatbelts, and I had a Pontiac Le Mans in high school that just heavy
Oh
foot.
yeah, I
So
grew up
I
without
bought
seatbelts.
350
Yeah.
Chevrolet or a General Motors engine. I got tickets in that car. It was a Portland's Chevelle. Yeah.
And Bill, how well does the car business itself reflect the Tri-Cities economy? I'm thinking back to 2008. The nation took a major downturn, and although I don't think you were selling a lot of cars, you were still pretty good, wasn't it?
Well, 2008 wasn't a bad year in the Tri-Cities. It was
Yeah.
a terrible year for the automobile business nationally. Everybody remembers the bankruptcies of General Motors and Chrysler Corp during those times. It was really tough. There was roughly a 20 to 30% drop in sales, total sales. But yet in the Tri-Cities, you hear economists say that economy is really local. In other words, your business is only as good as your local economy.
Mm-hmm.
What's happening nationally is important, but how's employment in your area? How's the unemployment in your area? How many jobs are being created? So in 2008 and 9, Hanford was in pretty good shape, and there was, remember that was a time of shovel-ready jobs, and there was a lot of temporary employees hired. And so the Tri-Cities got a good shot of employment at the right time. And so for us, that was a year we were able to make a deal with Lithia, one of the big public companies, to buy 2 of their 3 stores in town. They at the time had Dodge, had Honda, and had the Ford store, which was the old Bangor Ford, which was Lithia Ford at the time. In 2009, we were able to make a deal with Lithia to buy Ford and Honda, that worked out well. We were able to consolidate the Ford store then with what was Legacy Ford in Pasco, keep the building, remodel that for Honda, then move Honda, remodel a Clearwater facility, which was where Honda came from, and turn that into a Mercedes-Benz store, and move Mercedes-Benz then into that. So for us, it was a great opportunity. So there's things you can do in a recession you can't do otherwise, and not that I'm looking forward to the next one.
Right.
But certainly for us, it wasn't bad. For the state of Washington, it was tough, and nationally, it was very tough.
So for the Tri-Cities, and that was because of Hanford. But let me take you back to another incident, another major economic milestone here in the Tri-Cities, and that was the closure of N Reactor. So maybe about 87, 88. That was a lot more tough, wasn't it? Because
There was
people
a
moved
couple of,
and
yeah, there was a couple of real tough times in the 80s. By the time we closed with Osborne, it was spring of 81 when I officially became the Chevrolet dealer in Pasco. And I remember distinctly that was the same time that prime rate peaked at 21.25% interest.
oh, whoa.
And there
Yeah.
was layoffs right after that. So there was the Whoops bankruptcy in the early 80s, and then in the late 80s, kind of mid that 86, 7, 8 time period was another tough time. So there again, we were the opposite side of the national economy. During, I'll say, the Clinton-Reagan years, there was some pretty good national news, but the 80s were tough in the Tri-Cities. At least a couple of times they were.
Yeah, but they're pretty good now.
That's right.
We're good right now. We're going to ride that. So I want to learn more about integrity.
All right.
I think it's one of the smartest marketing ploys, and I do everything as a ploy, marketing strategies that I have seen. It really gives you something to wrap around, and its emotion. Where did it come from?
Well, it's interesting. It is very much part of our marketing, and we talk about it all the time. We call our dealerships McCurley Integrity Dealerships, and so when we have for example, a Subaru store is McCurley Integrity Subaru. And so that, from a marketing standpoint, yes, that's important. But how it started was way back when we're trying to define to our employees as we grew from 40 to nearly 300 now, and try to communicate what we believe in. And that goes to the culture, in the leadership and the culture of any organization. And so how do you take the passion and the love, and how do you wrap that all up into a word that people can understand? And we decided that integrity was doing the right thing, and doing the right thing all of the time. And so we started talking about integrity was what we believed, and then we said integrity is our middle name. And then we eventually said integrity is more than just our middle name, it's how we do business, which became the marketing side. But so it really didn't start with marketing, it really started with belief.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And just how you wanted to conduct business.
Exactly.
Well, what would we describe you? You're not retired. You're still pretty involved in the business, but you have handed over some of other responsibilities to your son and other people in the company.
Absolutely. Some years ago, before we expanded to the point that we are now, we operated with a general manager and a general sales manager, and it was very efficient, but not scalable. It wasn't a structure that we could grow. Well, scalable is probably the best way to say it. We couldn't repeat it. So we had to transition, and now we have a general manager for each store, each group of stores. People have been with me a long, long time. Henry Field, 22 years, Craig Kavanaugh, a lot of people know, 16 years, John Inman, 18. And really, the most recent is 6 years. And Mason started working in the business when he was 16 and working summers, kind of like I did growing up, and loved the business. Even when he was in 6, 7, 8 years old, the kids would say, I want to be a fireman, or I want to be a astronaut, and Mason would say, oh no, I want to be a car dealer. So it was all he's ever wanted to do, and he's going to be 35 in a couple of days, so he's been at it a long time, and went to university for that. So it's been our family plan for a long time. My dad started out, I grew the business, and so I view my time as really 40 years a caretaker, and hopefully Mason and his kids will be involved, and we can grow as a family company. That certainly is our goal at this point in time.
Are you actually spending more time doing things that you enjoy, like hobbies or travel, or are you still showing up every day at the dealerships?
Well, this is the best time for me ever, because some people get kicked upstairs. I opened the door and walked upstairs. I loved it. So my title right now is chairman. So it means I get to be involved in setting policy and helping with the leadership and the culture, but not having direct responsibilities. What I'm doing on a day-to-day basis is, we've been building buildings and remodeling buildings on a tear since 2009, and we're currently building a new 40,000 square foot building out on Road 100 in Sandyford for Subaru, and that's under construction right now. So that's job one. But that certainly isn't full time, so it allows me to travel and and try to play better golf. Wish I could play better golf. Do a little fly fishing, so I really enjoy it.
Yeah, that's good. Here, I'll tell you what, I want to take a break right here, but I could not let you go without talking about some of your philanthropic interests here in the Tri-Cities.
Okay.
You're well respected in that you've taken much of what you have earned and learned and passed it on to other people, and I want to talk about that. We're back in a moment.
Very good.
John, that's nice.
Little
for a
Brooks and
Tuesday.
Dunn.
Yeah. Well, I'm talking with Bill McCurley, and Bill has a long history here in the Tri-Cities. Started in the early 80s, came here to do a dealership, and has become incredibly successful, as I think most people would agree. One of the things that John is, he's not only successful at car dealership, but he's put a book together that he's given his family mostly, but he brought it in so I could take a look at it. And most impressive. And what I'm looking at now are these parts in the book that talk and share stories, letters, honors that you have earned here in the Tri-Cities. What's your favorite group, if you have a favorite group that you like to help out?
Well, that's a tough question. We've been doing different things for a number of years, and we really believe in the Tri-Cities community and our regional area as a community, that it's the responsibility of everyone to build the community, and it's been part of our brand and our culture and our belief from the beginning. Interesting piece of that, and I'll take just a side note. We were surveyed in 2012 by a big company, and they were trying to determine, it was called Best Companies, and they were trying to determine their first ever top 100 car dealerships in the United States and Canada. And we agreed to participate, and frankly, we're honored to be named in that top 100 dealerships to work for in the United States and Canada. But as I went back and looked at the results and tried to ascertain why our employees felt that way, the number one thing that stood out was they were very proud of our community involvement. They liked that a lot, and they liked to participate, and they liked to be part of it, and so the employees, have really led the way. So it's not only what I like, it's what we like as a team. I'd have to point out that I think one of our biggest issues now, and maybe certainly over the last few years, has been some of the crime and gangs, and I think Boys and Girls Clubs does a remarkable job of getting kids into the Boys and Girls Clubs. We have so many families that have both mom and dad are working, and there's a lot of kids that just don't have the after-school supervision that I had growing up, and I think Boys and Girls Clubs do an outstanding job, but there certainly are a lot of others that we're involved with. And
I know you've been very involved with Hispanic Achievement. Isn't that the name of the group? Hispanic Academic Achievers Program.
Yes,
Yeah.
We've been involved with that a lot over the years. Not as much, frankly, in the last year or so as HAP has moved to a different venue that we can't participate in. But we've kind of moved recently. We did a campaign for Make-A-Wish, and in 2014, that was a $94,000. It's kind of become an umbrella organization, Christine. It certainly isn't all lots. There's other local businesses that participate now. But we just presented Make-A-Wish with a check last month for a little over $118,000, and that'll fund about 24 wishes for our area in southeastern Washington. So we're really proud of that.
That's delightful. So, I'm looking through here, I'm seeing Toys for Tots. I'm seeing always the food drive that is done in the fall with Second Harvest as your recipient there. I mean, just all kinds of things that And so it's you and you say your staff that like to
Right.
participate in these things
Well,
as well.
for example, Oktoberfest is really it's an October promotion, obviously, through the dealerships, but everybody gets behind it. We partner with, again, other businesses. Yokes has been our partner in this for a number of years. It's been going on, well, let's see, 2014, in other words, last fall was our 13th year, and we were able to contribute, again, just, certainly not us, but as an umbrella organization. That was just over $40,000 to purchase food for the food banks at that time of year. So that was a big deal for them for the month of October. So.
I have to tell you that, and I've told many people this, but I make a lot of my decisions on what I'm going to purchase or what I'm going to visit based on to the extent that that business that I'm looking at is a contributor to the community. So I think it's a big deal, and I think that we have grown a group of people in the Tri-Cities who are givers. Oh boy, we have a
That's
lot
right.
of companies.
There's no question.
Yeah.
There's no question. One of the things that I think is a particular responsibility of a term that I use with my friends and use with my employees is stakeholders. There are a number of individuals and businesses in the Tri-Cities that are stakeholders. We're not, and I don't know how to say this without coming out a little bit negative, and I certainly don't mean it that way, but we live here, we have investment here, we have buildings here, we're responsible for payroll here, and I contrast that with maybe the big chains that come in, and certainly they make contributions and many times are involved, but it's a different kind of involvement. As stakeholders, when we need to get something done, it's this group of stakeholders a lot of times and I would use an example. I probably am known to be politically conservative, but on the other hand, I was very much in favor of the tax that was passed recently that is going to help our law enforcement and provide facilities in Pasco, and it's going to help both Benton and Franklin County for our better protection, and it's going to help us fund some projects that are appropriate, and so I thought it was the right thing to do.
Yeah.
And it was a group of stakeholders that helped pass that levy.
So I'm happy to see that each one of those are looked at individually. Bill McCurley, totally delightful to have you here on the
Thank
show
you
today.
so
We've
much.
learned so much more about you and about your dealership, integrity. All right, Bill, thank you. We're
Thank
back
you.
in just a moment.